The hero of this story is an ordinary student named Young Sun Woo, who is bullied at school. His own father committed suicide due to problems and debts. Before deciding to commit suicide, his father gave him a birthday present. This is a device that looks like a virtual reality helmet. He has the ability to show events that will happen tomorrow with second-to-second accuracy. This advantage gives him another chance at a new life, to which he will pave his way. At the beginning of the story, we see our hero who sat and cried, clenching his teeth as if he regretted something. He was holding some kind of box from a virtual difference device in his arms, and in a quiet voice he regretted something. Looking inside the house from the door, he continued to ask how he should now live and survive alone. Looking at the man, he kept shouting that he regretted everything and asked for forgiveness from his father. The image of our hero's father and the flowers with a dark ribbon hint that this man has recently died, and his name is Young Woo Hwan. What is that room in which there are now only 3 people? One of them is our hero and 2 unknown people. These people begin to contact our hero. Like Young Sun Woo's student, apparently they want to understand this suicide case. They also begin to wonder if his father said anything before the affair. Our hero responds by saying that if his father had said anything, this would not have happened, but this surprised the inspector. Young Sun Woo didn't even cry, covering his face. He just sat looking at the floor and thought about how hard it was for his father. Exactly 12 years ago, our hero's mother died in a hospital bed for unknown reasons. This caused our hero's father to become completely depressed because he now had to take care of a 5-year-old child. From that moment, Young Woo Hwan began to behave very strangely and said that he would like to know about something that could even happen. After that, his father raised him himself, and they left the house to go to kindergarten together. As soon as they left the apartment, our hero's father began to behave strangely because he was worried about everything. Uncertainty about everything forced him to double-check everything, for example, whether he had turned off the gas or the iron after ironing. He checked literally everything that could be checked, and even whether their window could break if the house was broken into. At the same time, he also checked the cold and hot water pipes to see if there was an explosion due to pressure. Only after all these procedures do they go somewhere. All this took at least 30 minutes before the walk. And since childhood, our hero has heard from people that his father has a mental disorder like Patrick Bateman, and that's why he's strange. So watching all these actions in childhood, our hero, of course, grew up the same as the person he watched. He was afraid of literally everything and was insecure, so he could not fit into society and became some kind of outcast at school. During breaks and even after school, he was always bothered by bullies from school who bullied him every day. These guys start talking to each other about his father, because in their area, our hero's father is known as a psychopath. It became known that our hero's father called the fire department 3 times, only because it became known that the gas pipes were leaking. These guys really don't have anything to talk about, and it's our hero's unemployed father who isn't getting hired. Turning to him, they begin to put psychological pressure on him, saying that he and his father are the only problems and all the neighbors hate them. A fat kid approaches him abruptly, and our hero immediately blocks, and everyone starts laughing at his weakness. I just think now that an unimaginable power will awaken in him that will allow him to teach all these hooligans a lesson. Unfortunately, this did not happen, and the events shift to some residential property in the city. Apparently, our hero's father was sitting there, looking at the monitor and saying that he knew about everything that happened. It turned out that he was talking about shares whose price had dropped significantly, but he was going to buy them but refused. He continues to bite his fingers, thinking that it is because of the horoscope that promised financial failure. At this stressful moment, the atmosphere is, of course, charged by our hero, who has just come home from school. His father turns to him and asks if he took an umbrella when he went to school, but it didn't rain. Young Woo Hwan starts yelling at him, saying that there was a 40% chance of rain, and he might need an umbrella. All this old man's nonsense apparently has already fed up our hero significantly, especially after the bullying. The problem became more acute. He begins to scream and cries with anger, saying that the owner of the house simply asked them to move out as soon as possible and vacate the premises. His father begins to talk about what he knew about this because he had a terrible dream, but our hero doesn't like it. For our hero, this is all the delirium of a madman who delivers a verbal blow with the fact that a person who knows the future would not live in a hole. It also became known that today is our hero's birthday, and he needs to be congratulated, but his father forgot about it. Turning back, Young Sun Woo simply goes to his room and asks his father to take care of himself and not him. The last blow to the father turned out to be too strong, because he was told that his son was ashamed to live only because of him. Nothing ends there. In a fit of anger, our hero begins to say everything that he kept deep in his soul. Going to his room, he slams the door with all his might because he just wants to die than live like this. All this that happened in just a moment made the father of our hero stand in a stupor, not understanding anything. He decides to look in the mirror to find out why his son avoids him, and sees himself. His look, which is similar to the look of a cowardly rabbit, makes him hate himself and his character. The main police station where our hero goes to meet with one person. This turns out to be the same inspector who dealt with this case, and was able to find Young's suicide note from Huang. On behalf of his father, he seems to hear his voice, because he said that he was ashamed of everything. His father apologizes for not being able to protect his son to the end, and asks him to look at the gift. The last gift that his father gave him, and now his deceased parents who look at him from heaven. After this day, our hero begins to return to his already quiet and lonely home. As he was getting up, a woman called him, who turned out to be the owner of the rental property, and asked him to pay the rent. And he simply comes home with the words that now the price of housing will fall due to the fact that a person died there. Her words did not worry our hero. He was only worried about how he would now live in this world. Walking home, he thinks about that woman who, knowing about everything, didn't even ask if our hero was okay. He stares at the floor. There is no more meaning in his life, and what happens to him does not matter. There was a virtual reality device on the floor, but our hero still couldn't let his father go to the next world. Since this gift is the last one his parents will give him, he should definitely try it. Looking at this device, he thanks his father in a quiet voice for such a gorgeous birthday gift. He starts crying again because it hurts him that his parents left without even seeing how he would use this device. With tears in his eyes flowing like a waterfall, he puts virtual reality glasses on his head. And after he puts it on, he doesn't see anything in front of him as if he were wearing ordinary sunglasses. However, this was not the only thing. Just a moment later, a silhouette appeared through the glare of the system. This silhouette turned out to be some man in a green t-shirt who was looking directly at our hero. What he saw apparently greatly surprised our hero, because his pupils even shrank with fear. He was in shock, so he immediately took off this helmet and just looked at it and screamed at the whole house. He didn't understand what had happened, and the helmet continued to ask our hero to put the device on again. The fact that the device began to talk to him surprised him, but the device itself kept asking him to put on glasses. With a trembling voice, he still could not believe that such a helmet could exist, and our hero decides to put it on. It turns out that the character in front of him is a young projection of his father. He kept asking the silhouette if it was him, but they didn't even listen to him, and he simply gave information about the fact that our hero only has the first level. Therefore, the skill that he can use is to see 1 minute of the next day. Our hero now has only one skill, so it will be used immediately without his consent. After these words, everything around him became too viscous, and all things began to spin in the other direction. Only now, the woman who sat in front of him and looked at him with a smile appeared in front of him. Our hero immediately decides to ask her about who she is, but this girl last saw him only in childhood. She puts her hands in her bag and says that his father asked him to give him a rather large amount as an inheritance. She hands the envelope with money to our hero, saying that this money is to pay for accommodation. Our guy is really a coward because he is simply afraid of using all this money and asks her to wait a little. The envelope seemed to be not quite fresh as bills began to peek out of it. Seeing these large yellow bills, he was very surprised because he had never seen such a large amount. Paper money with a face value of 50,000 Korean won began to fall out of the envelope. It was even frightening in its amount. It looks like he understands that this is just a game, and he doesn't even care that much about it. But the money that was lying on the floor surprised him with its beauty, because he could only dream about such a sum. Again, the whole world begins to spin and turn in his eyes. It looks like he is finally going back in time. The system begins to announce that the projection of the next day is over within a minute, and use is completed. Saying that the preview is now complete, the silhouette of our hero's father simply disintegrates into pieces in the air. Everything he saw simply shocked him, as if he saw in front of him the ghost of his father who had come for him. It was daytime in the courtyard, and sunlight was shining through the small window. Our hero still couldn't believe it all, and sat thinking about whether it was a dream or reality. The only thing he understands is that he saw his father on a virtual reality helmet. He picked it up and didn't understand why it wouldn't turn on. It looked like he broke it after using it once. And that's true because this Kaneki Ken simply could not see his dead father in some kind of helmet for games. What he saw seems to be considered a debt because his father had a lot of loans and he certainly wouldn't have had that kind of money. While he was sitting on the threshold, suddenly someone came to him and started knocking on the door asking questions. Young Sun-woo left the house and asked the man who came who she was, and in response he only heard how much he had grown. Before his eyes was the same girl from the helmet who gave him money, and she turned to him with a question. So there is a mug on the table containing nothing but ordinary water. They both sat opposite each other, and the girl apologized for not being able to attend his father's funeral. I looked at our hero and supported him, asking how hard it was for him to lose his parents at such a young age. Her uncle was not the kind of person who would leave so easily, but our hero looked at her and remembered what he saw her through his glasses yesterday. While she was talking to him, he interrupted her and asked who she was. With a smile on her face, she said that they saw each other when our hero was very little, and he should not remember her. She began to take something out of the bag, saying that this was an inheritance from his father, and this money now belonged to our hero. Everything was exactly the same as the glasses showed, only everything was in a different place, but they still gave him an envelope with money. She asked him to take it quickly, and he mutters something about the fact that now everything matches word for word. It turns out that this girl put her business card inside the envelope too, and asks him to contact her if there are problems. The envelope contained the same bills, the same yellow ones with a denomination of 50,000 won. Seeing this money, our hero began to scream as if he had seen sleep paralysis, but the girl said that it was time for her to leave. However, our hero is, of course, a well-mannered boy, and therefore stops her and asks how he can accept such a sum. Even if he doesn't know her, she still leaves him money because it's a debt that she pays back to his parents. There lies a huge envelope with money, and the money inside makes it look like a brick. He just looks at all this money and thinks about whether it all lends itself to at least some logic, and whether it's all legal. While he was thinking about how to spend the money, some annoying woman began to break into his house, shouting to open the door. Immediately, Young Sun-woo opens the door and asks about the problem, and according to the plans, she wanted to put this house up for sale today. She deliberately covers her nose, openly hinting that their house stinks and she will have to clean it up thoroughly. While she was still muttering something, money appeared before her eyes and our hero gives it back as for overdue rent and a deposit. Her eyes immediately lit up after this, and she couldn't even believe that this was real money, and our hero asks if this is enough. It seems that money has changed him a lot, because he started talking about how he will move out whenever he wants and asks her to leave. After paying the rent, he still has money left, and if he saves now, he will be able to extend it for a few more months. He looked at her business card, which was inside the envelope, and learned that she was an investigator and worked for the police. Of course, at first he does not understand why a girl named Shin Yeji is somehow connected with his father, and what kind of debt he owes. At the same time, he remembered the very device that showed him the future, and asked why it didn't work. Since before that he had only put on a helmet, he also decided to figure out what kind of gloves they were, and remembered about exercises. Saying that he needs to charge this helmet, he connects it to electricity and an orange light comes on. Evening had already come and the cold light was already burning brightly in our hero's house. The clock on the wall was ticking and now showed the time of night at 11 o'clock. Our hero continued to look at these glasses and did not understand why they could not fully charge for 10 hours. Having disconnected it and picked it up, he began to think that this device needed repairs and thought about how he would do it after school. It seems that all his plans were ruined because the device turned on by itself and asked our hero to put on this helmet. Again, a notification comes and sounds for our hero to put on the device, and he thinks that it's working. Together with the gloves, he began to fill this entire set and was ready to see the future before his eyes again. Again, a system appears that looks so much like his father that he even screamed as soon as he saw him. He started asking the bot if he could see him, but this system did not know this command. Apparently, this greatly upset our hero, but the system pleases him with the fact that he was able to raise the level, and now he is level 2. And the skill that he received allows him to see an event of a bad nature in the next day. This alerted him. Young Sun-woo asks the system whether the previous day was good, but this command is unknown to the system at the moment. Since our hero currently knows only one skill, it is activated automatically. Without his consent, he is moved again and everything around him is spinning and blurry. It looks like the school where our hero is currently studying, and the sun is shining and is already setting. Our hero appears on the street, and behind him, two guys begin to argue with each other about playing football. They collided with each other only because of the game, because one of them did not give a pass and at the same time missed the goal. Ronaldo and Messi started their clash only because their game was not going well, and they were ready to literally tear each other to pieces. Looking at all this, he begins to think that this all looks like a really bad day and begins to sweat. But the worst will only begin now, because a huge red brick is flying right at him, ready to break his skull. It seems that while he was standing, the long-awaited brick finally fell on him and his whole body began to move and twitch. After the collision, this building material breaks into pieces and our hero falls immediately along with the brick fragments. The same hooligans who apparently regretted everything they had done were on the rooftops because they just wanted to intimidate our hero. Only he was bleeding and just looked ahead without any feelings and didn't even feel pain after this. He begins to lose consciousness and everything becomes dark before his eyes, as if he is right now walking through a tunnel towards the light. The preview was completed, but he felt the pain from that brick as if it had actually fallen on him. That's all the pain that he felt seemed somehow strange and suppressed, and he, of course, did not understand anything. In front of us in the next scene, we can see the very school where our hero studies, and it looks like this is the beginning of a bad day. Here is our hero, who is talking with the teacher, and the teacher, after his story, doesn't even know what he should talk to him about now. And after some conversation, the teacher lets him go, telling him to stay strong and eat well because it's lunchtime. So the same moment is repeated where the guys are screaming for someone to pass to them. Again, these guys begin to repeat word for word words that were voiced using a virtual reality device. Having heard all these conversations, our hero, of course, understood what they were talking about and looks in that direction to make sure of everything. These guys again started a fight over the game, and our hero looked at them and said that everything was exactly the same. Of course, he remembers the very pain that happened to him because of the brick, and he looked up. With one sharp movement, he immediately decides to dodge, even regardless of whether a brick is flying at him or not. As he thought, a brick falls right in front of him and breaks very hard on the asphalt. This guy was literally able to escape death. They now feel funny because he survived and the brick didn't hit him, and everyone starts laughing at the fact that his father died. Our hero even swore after he was able to survive, and therefore his legs even trembled from fear. Taking the brick in his hands, he thought about whether he could look forward into the future, and was surprised at his new ability. He ran to his house as fast as he could all the way, saying that he really managed to avoid a bad outcome of events. With all his strength, he immediately slammed the door to his apartment, and standing, began to take off his shoes. All the events today should have upset him, but on the contrary, he was glad that he could see what would happen tomorrow. In panic, he tried to turn on the device to again look at what might happen tomorrow, but it would not turn on. Looking at his watch, he remembered that yesterday this device turned on only at 11 p.m., and today it should also work at this time. So a few hours later it was night again, and the light was on from his small house. The time has come to look into the future, and our hero asks about how it all happened to him. But the system immediately informed our hero that he did not know this conflict, and he asked him to continue talking further. The system begins to congratulate our hero on the fact that he now has the 3rd level, and he is surprised that his level is rising so quickly. Our hero begins to think that as he levels up, he will be able to gain cool abilities and know about everything in advance. He will be able to know stock prices, but the system still cannot understand what he is talking about. The new level allows him to find out the bad events of the next day, and the duration increases to 5 minutes per use. The fact that in just one level the ability to see the future increased from 1 to 5 surprised him too much. Everything around me began to spin, as if the nausea effect from Minecraft was now in effect. So he appeared in the projection of the next day, and those same hooligans sat in front of him and asked him what he was so busy with. Our hero said that he knew about everything, and a fat guy comes up to him asking if he knew about it. And he hits our hero in the stomach with all his might, so that even all his internal organs are rebuilt. After such a blow, he immediately fell down and started coughing, and all the guys around started laughing at him. While he was lying there and not twitching, they immediately realized that he was not breathing, and out of panic they began to scream, trying to call our hero. But it was already too late, and our hero even lost his pupils after this blow. Returning back to reality after wasting his chance, he thinks that tomorrow he will die after receiving a blow. This was not the end yet, and the bot begins to add that starting from the 3rd level, he will have 5 attempts to train. He doesn't understand, but the system also tells him that he can practice the part he watched 5 times and asks him to put on the controller. By the guise of a controller, he meant the very gloves that he needed just now. The system wishes our hero good luck, and of course on his orders begins training. He found himself right there again, but he was still surprised by it, as if the training wasn't supposed to go this way. The same words begin, and he begins to see something strange, and something that has already been repeated. The same fist flies at him right in the stomach, but this time he at least begins to move. Squinting his eyes, our cowardly hero fights off this blow, and his fist flies in the opposite direction. His friends start laughing while he just looks at his kuloke, not understanding what happened to him. Only now, having realized what happened, he begins to get angry and is more aggressively and on a grand scale about to hit our hero. He certainly couldn't parry this blow, and he was hit right in the face, so that even all the saliva flowed out of his mouth. The fat guy begins to beat him more aggressively, and orders him to beat him, to get up right now and beat him again. He lay there and tried to block his kicks with his feet, but it was this time that his kick finally broke through the defense. After they hit his weak spot, he apparently immediately began to lose consciousness while lying on the floor. The system reports that he has 4 training sessions left, but it looks like he won't make it through them because he felt all the pain. But he definitely does not give up, because if there is no pain, then there will be no development in his abilities and strength, and asks for more. He loses again, and begins to shout to the system that he has turned on the training mode again. The whole night passed like this for him, and only now morning has come and we see his school. He is sitting in the classroom. Looking at the children walking around the class, you can understand that it is now recess time. Young Sun-woo sits all alone and doesn't make friends with anyone. It looks like he really is an outcast since he has no friends at all. Finally, these 3 hooligans showed up, who came for the soul of our hero only because they got bored during recess. This fat guy starts raising his hand as if he's sitting in class right now, saying that it's as easy as shelling pears. Only our hero simply looked at him and was not afraid of the raised hand as before. The boy is surprised looking at our hero, not understanding why he is looking at him like that because he was not scared at all. The bully decides to give him a second chance to get scared right now because he thinks that our hero didn't see how he swung. Young Sun-woo has only one reaction to all his actions, and that is ridicule, as if this guy is like a jester to him. Confidently standing his ground, he also begins to tell him to continue because for him it's not scary at all. Everyone in the class looked at what was happening and remained silent, but our hero says that he knew about everything that would happen in advance. 2 friends begin to talk to each other, thinking that our hero has somehow gone crazy and is now talking complete nonsense. Only for the plump guy it sounded like a joke, and he was apparently provoked by our hero. According to the script, this fist is already flying into our hero's stomach, which, if it hits, can even kill him. Young Sun-woo apparently became some kind of Shaolin monk who can use the inertia of his body to repel blows and attack. He looks at his fist, still not understanding how he could so easily miss this punching bag. The fat man enters berserker mode and strikes more aggressively and persistently. Now this blow could be the final one. Our hero still sits in place and waits for the fist to fly closer, because before that he knew that the left fist would fly at him. He immediately dodges the blow, but the fat man apparently won't leave him so easily until he reaches him. He looks to the left to find out and understand what will happen next and how it will happen. Unexpectedly for everyone, the blow was not with the hands, but with the help of the legs, he delivered a middle kick to our hero. Everyone starts laughing at the fat man whose name is Choi Sung-dong, asking him what he is so busy with now. This hits this guy's self-esteem hard, and taking everything more seriously, he takes off his shirt to prepare for the fight. Our hero also becomes more serious and attentive in order to avoid a collision with him. The hippopotamus runs straight towards him as fast as he can, and even speeds up for this. Apparently now it will not be easy. Having stood in a boxer's pose, our hero keeps repeating in his thoughts that he still needs to continue to wait and he needs a little time. Now during the strike he dodges again, but Sung-dong himself apparently did not expect this because he wanted to grab him. While he continued to walk forward, our hero begins to trip him with all his strength. This makes this huge chubby guy spin like a bowling ball and hit the desks, knocking out a strike for our hero. Everyone around simply fell silent and watched this picture, and even his 2 friends could not believe what was happening. Young Sun-woo's happiness knew no bounds because he was finally able to fight back against those who always humiliated and frightened him. Of course, only on the bandwagon nothing ended. Apparently this is the beginning of the second round, and now our hero is certainly finished. But he didn't even see what happened next after the trip, because he only had 5 minutes to do everything about everything. Fortunately for him, the bell at the entrance to the classrooms begins to ring, because the lesson will begin any minute. His friends begin to stop him, saying that now the teacher may come to them and therefore they should quickly leave here. Apparently this guy is the strongest of the 2, because as soon as he said something about his behavior, he immediately fell silent. After this, he turns to our hero, asking him that he only developed speed because he was often beaten. Approaching the maximum distance, he gave an order to our hero that after some time he would fight with Seung-dun. Something mumbled in front of his nose. He said that he would do everything tomorrow. Apparently his quiet voice could not be heard, and he asks again the question about what he just said. Boldly standing his ground, our hero says that he is ready to fight him tomorrow. This takes Sun-dan out of this situation. But his choice only makes him laugh because if he doesn't succeed today, then nothing will change tomorrow. During their conversation, a teacher comes and from the threshold begins to shout at them about why they are still here. Angry at everything in this life, he simply decides to leave everything for later and agrees to see our hero tomorrow. Turning and clenching his teeth in anger, he replies that tomorrow he will bury our hero and put a stone slab on his grave. Our hero simply continued to look after him and thought about what he would have to do tomorrow. It's nighttime and the lessons are clearly over, and our hero's house is visible. The time is just 11 o'clock in the evening, time to use the device because there will be a battle between the Saurus. He has to fight with Seung-dong tomorrow, and before that our hero decides to train in order to win. The survival instinct kicks in for our hero, who diligently tries to find a way to defeat him. The system immediately decides to congratulate our hero on raising his level, and now he has the 4th level of the system. He begins to think that the task is easy only at the beginning of the game and asks to be shown his new capabilities. The system begins to tell our hero information about his current skills and system permissions, and gives a new skill. Now he can view today's day for 10 minutes, and this action can be performed 5 times. He doesn't understand what it is, but the system asks him to select the period of the moment he wants to go to. Although they added the function of recording today, he does not understand why this is needed because he knows about what happened today. Suddenly, an insight comes that literally puts a new idea right into his head. His thoughts are filled with the fact that he can rewatch the moments of the fight with Seung-dong, and also looking at his types of attacks, determine his weak points that can be easily broken through and defeat him. Finally, he decides to choose this moment, and tells the system that he wants to see this fragment and waste all his chances. A picture of everything that is happening appears before his eyes, but only he is not looking from the first person, but from a different angle. Even before his attack, he noticed that Seung-dong's lower body was much weaker than his entire upper body. This makes it difficult for the fat man to balance himself and hit as hard as he can, and the question is asked how he would defeat him. The projection ends and he finally comes to his reality, thanks the system for such an excellent function. After that, he wants to see a projection of the next day and how he can even defeat this guy in a fight. But as soon as he was moved, the evil face of Park Chan-suk appeared in front of him, asking if he was normal. He begins to approach our hero more and more, asking how our hero dared to hit him, but he did not understand anything. While he was thinking about something, a huge fist was already flying at him, the size of which was similar to his face. Having sworn at our hero, Chan-suk hit him with all his might, so much so that he even flew several meters forward. And he immediately passed out or even died there, but at home he continued to scream in fear or pain. Immediately he simply took off the virtual reality device and threw this object on the floor. He still couldn't believe that the bad event would not be a fight with Seung-dong, but that he would hit Chan-suk. How did it happen? From what he saw, he simply received derealization in his piggy bank, because Chan-suk is one of those guys who fights well among first years. Only a madman who has nothing else to lose would attack this monster, and the system asks him to put it on. It looks like our guy doubted his abilities too much, and that's true, because this guy looks like a real huge monster. The system begins to tell our hero to put on the controller with both hands, and that at the moment only 5 training sessions are available to him. Having gained confidence, he decides to challenge again, with the intention of really defeating Chan-suk. It's still evening in the yard, and there's no word or breath from our hero. Drops fell on the floor, apparently from tears of hopelessness or from hard training. The system says that the preview is finished for today, but apparently this was not enough for our hero. He takes off the virtual reality device and looks directly at it, saying that there is something he cannot do. He can't fight with Chan-suk, because if they fight, he himself won't last even 2 minutes, and after that, he's done. The bright sky is strewn with clouds. It looks like the next day has arrived. This time our hero was not at school, but slept at home and talked with the teacher about how he could lie down at home today. He is happy that he will finally survive today and simply won't go to school, because then he won't have a reason to fight. It turned out that he had been awake all night, thinking about how he could defeat him, and now he really wanted to sleep. At the moment, it is 8 o'clock in the morning and the clock is ticking, and the time to study is just beginning. In just a second, another 9 hours fly by and it's evening outside. Our hero, who was just sleeping all this time, begins to open his eyes after a good sleep. And immediately at this moment, someone begins to literally knock down his door, with words about what our hero is doing there. Everyone thought that it was the owner of the apartment who had come again, but it turned out to be the same guys who came to him after school. They begin to repeat that our main character claimed that he would fight tomorrow, but now he is holed up at home. The only thing he could think of at the moment when he was practically being attacked was to simply call the police. But no matter how much he pressed the power button, the phone still did not react. It seemed that it had run out of power. He was looking for his charger in a panic, and these guys had already begun to look out the window asking if our hero could hear them. Threats are already starting, and they promise that they will break down his door, come inside and take away everything that he has and once had. Young-sun-woo looks at his console with which he can continue to live while seeing the future. He begins to worry not about himself and not about the fact that he might be beaten, but about the gift his father gave him for his birthday. Without the desire to act, he still decides to go out to meet the 3 of them, and they start laughing at him. Right away, this guy apparently already became confident in himself because he asked about where they would hold the fight. By silence, the fat man Seung-dong showed how unpleasant it was for him to communicate with Young-sun-woo, and also showed his aggression. A dangerous area in which there is a sign warning that this area can be dangerous. Apparently this is the territory of some old factory, because all around there is construction waste along with a lattice fence. Sun-don at first doesn't want to start a fight because today he somehow felt sorry for our hero, but this is unlikely to be the case. Of course, all his words were just a bluff, because he was ready to seize any chance to take revenge on our hero for everything. While this guy was talking about something, our hero decided to interrupt him and tell him to quickly start and stop chatting. This was able to take him out as easily as if he took the phone from a child, and he begins to attack. This Muhammad Ali guy seems to have learned all this in just one night and can now use the dancing fist. A blow straight to the jaw of this guy who didn't even hit the length of his arm in the face of our hero. However, it was too weak for a knockout, and it seems that this moment became the beginning of a whole war between them. One of their group begins to shout to Sung Dong, asking what happened to him and whether he was so weak before the start. The only thing in our hero's head was that he had already watched what happened during the fight yesterday, and now nothing could knock him down. And even more so, a fight with this guy, who seems to be the most friendly of their trio, will be as easy as possible for Young Sun Woo. His hand again flies straight at this guy's head and jaw at the speed of sound that even his whole face begins to swim. They both look at this with abnormal interest, watching their friend being beaten by the weakling whom they all spread rot together. Chan Seok is surprised that our hero's inept attack and defense should not leave him a chance to win, and they simply cannot answer the question of how Young Sun Woo can beat Sung Dong so easily, and even drop him. After kicking the weak guy, this hippo immediately falls on his back next to a brick wall. Our hero immediately realized that this was exactly the chance that would allow him to kill and destroy Sun Dong. Of course, taking advantage of such an easy chance, he begins to kick him harder and harder in the face. Chan-suk approaches him with the words that our hero was able to win, and he should calm down right now. Tired and without stamina, our hero asks him not to bother him anymore at school. But apparently no one wants to agree to his conditions, because strength had to be shown at the moment of their meeting. They all have a question about why our hero just closed his eyes and cried before. Their guesses fell on the hero's father, who, according to their hypothesis, beat him so that he began to be afraid of literally everything that moved. They start laughing, remembering that his father was a crazy maniac who did not give him a chance for a good life. The moment of the most painful question for him comes. He was asked whether he saw how his father was told. Chan-suk kept on asking about how he felt at that moment and what it was like, and at that moment a fist flies. It's right from Chan-suk's face that he even closes his eyes. Apparently all these questions could not leave our hero indifferent. Now the moment has come, which was just played out in the virtual reality helmet. A real monster awakens. Seeing this, even their mutual friend from the trio was surprised and even froze in fear because he knew what was about to happen. With a furious look, he looks at Young Sun Woo and asks whether he is normal or not himself. The moment begins to repeat itself exactly as it was, and the beast begins to approach its victim. In his thoughts, our hero now began to understand that the worst moment from this day was when he punched Chan-suk right in the face. Young Sun Woo was shaking all over with fear, and his consolation was that he would never escape his fate and what would happen. After these thoughts, the thug begins to swing his arms in order to deliver his blow to our hero. Our hero receives a strong blow to the face, who took on too much after the gift and did not develop physically at all. One blow was able to put our hero right on the ground, and Chan-suk in a rage ordered him to get up from his seat immediately. Of course, it was in vain that our hero angered him, because here and now he is ready to send our hero straight to his father in heaven. He could barely hold himself in his arms, and in his thoughts analyzed previous experiences from training, where he always died after 2 minutes. Out of anger, he begins to squeeze in his hands the sand that was strewn throughout the entire territory in this area. Chan-suk began to pull him towards him, still ordering our hero to get up from his seat. Before he even had time to understand what was happening, sand was flying right into his face as a gift from Young Sun Woo. The sand hits his face exactly. From the pain that he then felt, he even screamed just like Guts, who cut off his hand. Immediately after this, our hero decides to go on the run, because this is the only method he has not tried in training. While Chan-suk was literally crying in pain, the second guy started running after our hero to get him before he could run away. It's already evening and the sun is about to set. Soon it will be dark outside. But our hero continues to run forward, and this henchman is running right behind him, shouting at him to stop. This guy is already starting to pester our hero, reaching out to him with his hand and calling him a loser. But this loser has already given up the idea of running away, because after 2 fights in a row he had practically no strength left. And finally, the endless forest ends and the image of a highway appears before his eyes. The only thing left for him in such a situation is to simply run forward, hoping that he can find a way out. And when he ran out onto the road, that's when he saw a car driving straight towards him. When he landed, the car could only stop right in front of his nose, and our frightened hero still could not move. The driver got out of the car and immediately started yelling at our hero, asking him why he ran out onto the road. Looking at this man, he continued to ask him for help in a quiet voice, but the driver still could not understand him. The guy looking at all this from the bushes begins to grind his teeth and curses our hero, calling him a coward. Night has already fallen and our hero goes home after what he has done all day, all alone to meet his mother and child. Of course, he was thinking about what he would do as a savior and how he could survive at school tomorrow or after a while. Right in the middle of the road, he sat down clutching his head and did not understand what he should do now with everything that was happening around him. He wants to go to the police with a statement, but no one will listen to him because he beat them and attacked them. And a shock realization comes to him about whether these guys will be waiting for him near his house. Having already given a damn about all this, he simply goes to his home, realizing that now clearly no one can help him with the problem. Suddenly something else was able to attract his attention. This could most likely become a solution to his problem. He was able to dig up somewhere a business card from an aunt who came to him and worked as an investigator in the Seoul police station. And our hero listed the names of those who offended him to his aunt. She immediately after that wrote down their names on her notebook. But still, it will be difficult for her just to find evidence of their guilt, and she will be able to contact the necessary department. Including all this, she will also ask one of the investigators to monitor his house so that those guys do not approach him at all. She also decides to ask about other problems, but he doesn't have any, and he spent the money she gave to pay a month's rent. Using this convenient moment, he asks her about how she is related to his father. This surprises her. This question was unexpected for her, and out of discomfort, she begins to straighten her hair, starting a story about how she was their neighbor. At that moment, our hero's mother worked in the police and she was in high school. Even the beginning of the story itself surprised our hero. He asked her with more enthusiasm whether his mother really worked in the police. Young Sun Woo says that his father always got angry when he asked about his mother, and she died when he was little. Looking at the floor, she decided not to go too deep into this issue and not deal with it. She continues her story, saying that our hero's mother helped her since they lived very close in the neighborhood. It turned out that her then classmate wanted to play with her by force, and our hero's mother saved her. The guy who pestered her was from a fairly wealthy family, and therefore with the help of connections, he was able to justify himself. She began to drink her drink, saying that after that she wanted to commit suicide, but our hero's parents, who supported her, did not allow her. An open sky without clouds under which these two talk about everything in life. Our hero's father always told her that she would have hope for a better life if she continued to live. Our hero thought about her words because his father abruptly interrupted communication with her, and it was too strange for someone like him. Young Sun Woo also begins to talk about how his father began to behave strangely after his mother died. As he was looking at the floor, suddenly she put her hand on his shoulder, which surprised him. She says that she wanted to become as cool as our hero's mother, and therefore she is always ready to support him just like his parents. Words that he had never heard before or heard very rarely gave him hope to continue living. With a smile on her face, she kept repeating the words of our hero's father, that he would have hope if he continued to live the same way. Our hero didn't seem to understand anything, but still decided to agree with her words. It is now 11 p.m., just as it should be to use the special ability. Holding his father's gift in his hands, he asked him why he hid from him the fact that his mother was a police officer. In his hands was a device that told him to put it on, but he begins to say that since he found out about it, it's time to act. The system appeared in front of him immediately, and he decided to ask if his level had increased. To everyone's disappointment, our hero remained at the same level as yesterday, so it is logical to assume that the skills are the same. There was a notification from the system and a hint on how to raise the level, and it was simple. It's not to escape fate. He understood these words as if he had to fight with Park Chan-suk, because he had to face fate. He explains to the system that he is afraid to fight with Chan-suk because he is 15 centimeters taller than him and will also weigh more. He decides that he will not watch the recording from today and therefore asks the system to immediately start watching tomorrow's bad event. Immediately after moving, he found himself in a place where there is an alley behind the school with garbage cans, and sand starts flying right into his eyes after a few seconds. Probably now he can't see anything. In the real world, he could not see anything. His entire screen was blocked with sand directly into his eyes. Our hero was already lying on the ground, and voices around him ask if it's nice for him to get hit in the face because he too was in pain. In reality, our hero began to cry only because sand was thrown right into his eyes. Having taken off the mask, he immediately begins to touch his eyes because they hurt him a lot, and nothing is visible in the projection from the very beginning. Since he threw sand right on Chan-suk's face, he will also have to grab the sand right into his eyes. For him, this attempt was somehow incomprehensible, and therefore he decides to immediately start the second one in order to understand the whole situation. Immediately after the first one, our hero decided to cover his faces so that sand would not get on him, and people around him laughed at him. After that, two people began to hold him by both arms at once so he could not lift them. Over and over again, he still got sand right in his eyes and screamed several times from the pain in his eyes, but he never gave up. After several attempts, our hero simply lay on the floor suffering from pain, and two people held him everywhere, and Chan-suk threw sand at him. All his eyes were simply dry from the constant collision with the sand, but he did not understand how he could win. But now a group appeared that said something about the fact that he is cooler than he seems. It turned out that our hero decided to come to school after all, and deal with everything on his own. Looks like Fat Sung Dong still holds a grudge against him for beating him in front of all the people. Chan-suk took the sand in his hands and squeezed it tightly. It looks like he will now attack in response. As expected, after the sand flies into our hero's eyes, with which they want to blind him. However, surprisingly, he was able to react and put a block in front of him to prevent the sand from getting into his eyes. He decided to tease him and ask him how he was feeling, although he didn't get it, so he gave the order to hold him. At that very second, his henchmen grabbed him by the two hands and listened to his every word. At that moment, Chan-suk took a huge amount of sand in both hands to simply fill all of our hero's eyes with sand. He grabbed him by the head, but our hero immediately closed his eyes so as not to get sand. But Chan-suk forcibly began to open his eyelids so that the sand could completely get into his eye. And our hero seems to have already come to terms with the fact that he is finished. And as the system itself said, he decides to fight his fate right now. A palm with sand is already starting to fly straight into the face of our brave man, who decided to confront these three. It seems that some kind of strength has awakened in him, after all these nights where he trained like a dead man just to survive. Having freed himself, he blocked the sand that was flying at him and squinted his eyes to be sure to protect himself. He himself didn't understand how he was able to avoid the sand, and now his eyes don't even hurt as if they would fall out. The guy who held him was also surprised that he was able to get out, because he held our hero with all his might, but it still didn't work. Looking at his hand, he realized that this happened last night, and what happened to him was simply because of the training he was doing. He is already ready to fight against the army of Alexander the Great and Caesar combined, because he was able to gain power. Angry, he himself begins to approach, because they could not hold him properly only because of their weakness. He raises his hand to strike, saying that our hero has surprised him more and more over the past month with his tenacity. And he delivers a blow that was delivered in a fit of aggression. We hope that our hero will not fly off immediately with one blow. He begins to beat him even harder, asking if our hero can surprise him with something more interesting now. And our hero remembers that he already fought with Chan-suk, only because he could use glasses that predict the future. This time he decides to block his blow with his palm. It looks like the most interesting fight is about to begin. He landed his strongest blow on the stomach of the defenseless Chan-suk, who clearly did not expect this blow. Let the battle begin. This scene in which the weakest outcast of the school and the strongest of the first years fight will be very interesting. It seems that this blow somehow hurt the self-esteem of this bruiser, that he even fell silent and simply looked at the ground. Raising his head as if nothing had happened, he asks our hero if he is finished now. As Jung Sun-woo himself expected, they put him down in just 2 minutes and now he lies all beaten by an inch of the wall. But the offender suffered quite a lot, because it's all visible on his face and on his lips, on which there are drops and traces of blood. He starts kicking our hero, asking him to get up again because he wants to have some more fun with a fight. Chan-suk seems to be tired of somehow trying to recall our hero, and wants to deliver the final blow to make a fatal victory. However, it is at this moment that some guy in a t-shirt goes out onto the balcony and shouts to these hooligans to disperse, otherwise he will call the police. They still decide to stop Chan-suk, because otherwise our hero might just lean back and fly away like an angel to the next world. They all leave this place, worrying that some rumors will not spread about how our hero was able to defeat and beat him. After the footsteps have subsided, Jung Sun-woo begins to open his eyes and look around to make sure they have left. He wipes his blood from his nose and, with a battered body, is surprised that he was able to survive the fight with Chan-suk and faced fate. It's the same evening again, and most likely it's 11 o'clock, so it's time to use the device. Only now our hero is simply standing in front of the mirror and examining the body, but the hospital said that he had no serious injuries. Those bullies kicked him so hard that now his whole body hurts, starting from his feet to his head, so it's time to rest. Virtual reality glasses ask that our hero be able to put them on as soon as possible. At first he looked towards the system with a black eye and thought about something, but he decided to refuse and closed his eyes, because now he does not have the strength to do anything. However, the system doesn't care how our hero feels because the main thing is that he can use it. Our hero puts on this device, complaining about his health, because he will not be able to train in any way in this state. As soon as he put on the glasses, they immediately began to congratulate him on his new level, because he now has the 5th level. This can only mean one thing. Now his skills have improved and he can see bad events lasting 10 minutes. And the recordings can also be viewed for an hour and 10 times, and there are now 10 workouts. All this greatly surprises him. He begins to make mathematical calculations about the fact that before this he could only watch 100 minutes of recording. And since now he can watch for an hour 10 times, this means that he will watch today's recording for 10 hours. All these conditions of the system are not very pleasant for our hero, who will have to spend 12 hours to do everything. The system just listens to him while he mutters about how he simply won't have enough time to prepare for the event. However, the bot tells him that the time he spends in preliminary visibility does not in any way affect the time that flows in the present. The system again continues to talk and repeat the answer to the question, only because our hero did not understand. He still couldn't believe what the system was saying, because all this time he had been sitting for several hours. But looking at his phone and the clock that was on it, he saw the same time, namely 11 o'clock in the evening. Young-sun-woo finally comes to the conclusion that on the 4th level he should have spent an hour, but the time was always 11 p.m. It seems that now all the doubts he had before have disappeared, and now he must check everything that came to mind. Our hero begins to talk to the virtual silhouette of his father, and now asks if he can watch 10 hours of recording. The answer turns out to be positive, and he asks to show 10 hours of how he sleeps at dawn. The system immediately activates the skill. Now he is lying on the bed and sleeping. This is where he feels good, so he asks the system to do this another 10 times. Each time he does nothing except continue to sleep in different positions. Now he has completely exhausted all attempts to view the recordings, and all this can be heard through the walls. He takes off his virtual helmet and leaves it on the floor while he goes somewhere. It seems he was about to take a shower, so he began to take off his t-shirt so that it would not interfere. Looking at his body in the mirror, you can understand that now his body practically does not hurt, and at the same time he slept well. By putting on the controllers, he discovers a new ability of this device for himself, because time stops for everyone except himself. All this means is that our hero will be able to recover faster after fights and clashes, and is going to repeat everything. Now he has 2 skills left, watching a bad event and 10 training sessions, so he starts everything without an iota of doubt. He screams and asks the system to show him everything that will happen tomorrow, because after 10 hours of sleep he is definitely ready. Only now he himself finds himself somewhere in his class, and does not understand the whole situation that is happening now. Someone begins to address our hero, calling him, to put it mildly, a fool, and he pays attention to this. Seung-dong stood there looking at our hero with fear and shock, because he hit Chan-suk in front of everyone. At first he does not understand what is being said, because he could never hit Chan-suk very first and without a single reason. This all shocked even those who were determined, but he was lucky today, but this will not continue. After his own words, he thought about life while looking down, and seemed to understand something. Looking at his glasses that allow him to see the future, he thought about what he was even doing now. He remembers his father, and asked Sayuya if he was scared because now he had almost walked in his footsteps. The moment he rudely told his father that he was better off dying than living like this begins to replay in his head. Young-sun-woo begins to tremble from the fact that it was he who to some extent pushed his father to commit suicide with his words. Abruptly and at the same time suddenly he puts on virtual reality glasses. He asks the system to show the future again, because he simply cannot continue to live like this after what he said to his father. Here is our hero's school, above which there is sunny weather, and everywhere there are clouds that do not cover the sun. In the classroom there is a clock hanging on the wall that says 9 o'clock in the morning at that moment. This trio sits together and seems to have breakfast together, talking about the fact that our hero will not be able to come to school today after the beating. They think that our hero just went to the hospital, because he is not one of those who is capable of demanding compensation from them. They laugh with a smile only because he cannot file a claim, because he has neither parents nor anyone who could take care of him. The fat man, eating his burger, says that he is afraid that our hero might do something else because he has changed too much. Without chewing his food, he continues to remember the time when Young-sun-woo was even simply afraid to approach them and look into their eyes. They start laughing at him, making fun of the fact that he is simply afraid or someone will find out about how Young-sun-woo beat him. He goes into berserk mode just by remembering him and says that he can tear him to pieces as soon as he gets a chance for another round. At this moment, a high-flying bird flies right onto Chan-suk's head, flying into him right from his feet, so that he even drops everything from his hands. Everything begins to repeat itself exactly as it was before. Seung-dong begins to arrive in shock because our hero attacked Nya Chan-seok. All non-player characters begin to silently watch everything that is happening now, because it all just looks like a strange dream. Laughing as if he heard a funny joke, Chan-suk gets up from his seat looking straight at Young-sun-woo. It looks like he was already ready, because he just took off his shirt and now he is even ready to kill our hero. From the lips of our hero, we can hear that although he is not sure that he can defeat him, no one knows for sure what will happen. Having gained strength from nowhere, he is ready to stand his ground to the last, because on this day he is even ready for death. He himself begins to laugh at his words because Young-sun Woo is even ready to die today. Apparently this is definitely the end, because Chan-suk is ready to kill him since our hero himself wants it. Apparently someone will hang up their skates today. In one deft move, our hero dodges the brute's hook and stays alive for extra seconds. Another blow, but this monster still can't hit him despite the fact that he's already running at him with blows. It seems that he himself cannot understand why he cannot hit our hero, because he does not know how dexterous our hero is. Our hero says with uncertainty that they will see this in the future. In his thoughts, he thinks about the training that he did at night. He still continues to evade and never attacks, because as soon as he attacks, he will immediately lose and be killed by him. Looking at him, he understands that their difference in physical data is too great, so he will lose in any type of battle. Apparently 10 training sessions were not enough to hone his skills, because he was still hit, and quite powerfully at that. After the blow, our hero simply stood still, and with a mockery he asked what he was staring at. Only our hero just wanted to run away from here as quickly as possible, and asked everyone to run out of the way so as not to get in the way. And so they both run in some direction, and Chan-suk asks if our hero can run away from him like a coward. In the thoughts of our hero, he came up with some kind of strategy, and according to the strategy, he continues to run after him. After our hero simply ran up the stairs, he discovered that it was the 5th floor, that is the last, and the door to the roof was closed. But it seems his plan was different, because he did not continue to run and simply hit the thug with his legs. However, he is also not so stupid and held onto the railings on the stairs with all his might. With stronger aggression and rage, he attacks our hero and is already advancing on his territory. He makes his strike, but our hero simply dodges his blow with unusual ease. Another blow that this time hit the offender right in the jaw. It looks like he is now going to roll down like a ball in a slide. Chan-suk falls down the stairs and is now lying next to the closet after being hit hard. Our hero continues to stand there, and in his thoughts he talks about how he discovered this ladder during training at night. Since further up there is only a roof at the back, no one will be able to attack him. But Park Chan-suk, being one level lower, will not be able to kick him. According to physical data, our hero's legs are longer than his arms, so you just need to continue in the same spirit. So he was finally able to find the perfect plan to defeat the monster, but will he be able to win this way and become something more than just a loser?